Celsius.
LBC Travel, I'm Joanne Webb. For those who need to make a journey, there are problems on the M20 eastbound between junctions 4 at Leybourne and 5 at Aylesford. One lane's had to be closed because a car has broken down. On the A2, there are delays now of about 15 minutes westbound up to the Ebbsfleet turnoff, and that was after an accident. All the lanes are now back open. On the Chiswick High Road, there are southbound delays heading towards Kew Bridge. Those emergency repair works are taking place and only one lane is open. And on the Underground, there are minor delays on the Hammersmith and City Line.
This is LBC. Nick Ferrari now. 0345 6060 973. LBC. Ferrari at breakfast on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Sarah, coming to you in a moment. A couple of emails from the top of the pile. Max in Chelmsford. I'm for and against this passport idea. It's a no-brainer for international travel even, but ethically seems a bit wrong domestically. Some people don't want to take a vaccine for personal reasons, and that's up to them. Well, I don't think, unless health reasons, yes. Personal reasons, no, they don't apply, because we need to get the country going again. Richard in SW11. Good old Nick Ferrari, the government PR man. There are plenty of people who operate in the modern world without mobile phones, apps or passports, and who can't choose to not to get vaccinated. Why would you changes to those, including backdoor ID cards? Because, Richard, we have to get this country going. The government has fallen over itself to get the vaccines out there. They're doing a fantastic job. And if what was required is for you to get what's called a vaccine passport, so people can get back to work in their pubs, can get back to work in tourism, we can get the children back into their schools, I don't see, Richard, why you're opposing it, unless, of course, you have a medical condition where the vaccine would kill you. Of course, no one is suggesting that. All right, on the idea of getting back to schools, let's bring into the conversation Education Secretary Gavin Williamson, who joins me now. And I note that you have an announcement. Schools in England will be given millions of pounds in extra funding. Let's put some actual facts to that, Secretary of State. What sort of level of schools, secondary, and how much money are we talking about? Good morning.
Literally hundreds of millions of pounds, Nick. You'll be hit almost as much as is in your bank account.
Well, I wish I would be donating vast sums of it to the government.
But this is building on the extra £1 billion that we made available to schools just over 6 months ago. It's part of the national tutoring programme, a big expansion of that, which really targets small group tutoring at some of the children from the most disadvantaged backgrounds. It's also £200 million to help secondary schools who want to run summer programs for their children to give them a boost in terms of their education, targeting the children that would benefit from that extra help in terms of academic support, but also some additional activities that are good for mental health and physical health. But on top of that, over £300 million going out to secondary schools and primary schools. That works out as an average £22,000 for a secondary school, £6,000 for a primary school. But it's a whole set of different actions to help schools have extra flexibility in order to be able to bring extra tuition to bear for those children.
What are the teaching unions saying about this, Secretary of State?
Well, Nick, I'm sure you've got probably a list of quotes possibly there that you're going to bring out. But I think actually what children and parents would see is this is a positive step in the right direction. But the best way of helping children is getting them back into school, getting them back into the classroom, welcoming them back with open arms. And I know as a parent myself, I'm certainly looking forward to seeing that happen. And actually, I think children are looking forward to seeing that happen. And I think the overwhelming majority of teachers are looking forward to seeing that.
Some of the unions are saying it's not enough cash and it's unworkable, and teachers, and I'm sure you want to pay tribute to them, teachers have been working hard enough as it is through the pandemic, expecting them to give up part of their summer, for some instances £22,000 in the whole kitty, is unpractical and unreasonable. Mr. Williamson.
Well, on top of that £22,000, there's a further £200 million, £22,000 average per secondary school. But on top of that, there's a further £200 million available that schools are able to draw down, secondary schools are able to draw down on that funding in order to be able to pay for staff and people to be able to come into schools and help deliver extra support for pupils. So there's extra money there. We're not asking teachers to give up their holiday, but we are asking schools to look at the different options to help give their children an extra boost. And so many of them, I mean, if we look at the Harris Academy in London, did some brilliant work in terms of these sort of extra summer support for children who were wanting that little bit of an extra helping hand. And it worked incredibly well and had brilliant results. So let's look at what we can borrow from those great ideas and use them elsewhere.
How confident are you, Secretary of State, that all the schools will reopen on March the 8th as is planned in England? As Julie McCulloch, Director of Policy at the Association of School and College Leaders, says that she fears some of the secondary schools just won't be ready in time. Mr. Williamson.
Well, I'm very confident that we're able to achieve that. We've given secondary schools the flexibility over that first week to bring the different year groups back as part of helping them with their testing regime. So there's all children are tested as they come into school, and we saw that over the last few months, teachers, parents, but most importantly, children have done an amazing job in terms of learning at home. but there's a real desire to be back in the classroom. And I hear that from teachers as well as from children. And we're putting the support there to help schools roll out the testing regime. We've already had 4.5 million tests done in schools as part of COVID lateral flow device testing. So it's already happening. And I've no doubt that it will continue to happen from the 8th of March.
Well, some of the teachers on the front line are saying that they fear it might not. To another issue, why weren't all the teachers vaccinated during the half-term break, Secretary of State? That would have made sense, wouldn't it?
Well, we wanted to prioritise the people who are most likely to be hospitalised and those people who are most likely to die as a result of catching COVID. We felt that it was the best thing to do was to target those people most at risk of death. Well,
respectfully, Tony Blair, and I'm delighted that he's had it, but I mean, he's a very fit individual, and I don't think he's in risk of hospitalisation, and hopefully he's not in risk of death. Wouldn't it have made more sense to do teachers ahead of former politicians?
Well, I wasn't going to go into Tony Blair's medical history.
Not medical history, but he had a photograph taken of himself having his jab, as have many other celebrities, and I think possibly Tony Blair would have said, I'll tell you what, put the chemistry teacher ahead of me.
But as part of the next stage of assessment, we're actually asking the independent medical advisors as to look at two things. Those who are most at risk of dying of COVID or being hospitalised as a result of COVID. And secondly, we're asking them to look at the professions and the jobs that are most at risk in terms of public.
Are you fighting the good fight for the teachers? Are you fighting, because I understand the Home Secretary is for police officers, Dame Cressida Dick at the Met is for police officers under her. Are you fighting the fight for the teachers and say, I want them in the next cohort, Boris?
I always want to see teachers be getting the vaccination and support staff at the very earliest opportunity. But what we do have to do is we have to protect those people who are most vulnerable as a result of getting COVID, of ending up in hospital and ending up dying.
And on that subject, and I appreciate this is a little out of your brief, but you will have been, I'm sure, keeping a key eye on the figures. Yesterday we had 192,000 vaccinations, which is great, but that's now 4 days where we've come under the 200,000 mark. Matt Hancock was with me yesterday. He said it's a bit lumpy and it's quite difficult stuff to make, those words exactly. Have we got a problem in the supply chain, Secretary of State?
No problem in the supply chain. We've got one of the most advanced vaccination systems anywhere in the world of any major country. And Matt and the whole team, and it's been a big national collective effort, have been doing wonderful work, and they're going to continue to deliver that wonderful work. There's no problems in terms of flow of vaccines. We'll be hitting incredibly high numbers. The Prime Minister's already made it clear that we're going to reaching all the adult population at a sort of record speed,
right.
And
but this time last week,
flowing behind.
This time last week, 452,000. This time this week, 192,000. You can understand why people are concerned, Secretary of State.
I can understand that people will raise concerns, but that there isn't concerns that they should have. The fact that we've had this brilliant procurement exercise in terms of being able to guarantee supply of vaccines. There will always be some days where it dips lower. You point out that it's been 4 days, but I have every confidence that it'll be rebounding back very shortly. Would
you be happy to, and I've already said I would, have a so-called vaccine passport to facilitate entry to theatres, to cinemas, to restaurants, and possibly to facilitate travel overseas as and when it were possible, Mr. Williamson?
I think I would probably do pretty much anything to be able to enjoy all those lovely things. That,
do you think they will become a reality?
I think the idea of going to a restaurant with your family or going to the theatre is something that we all really want to see.
Do you think they will become a reality?
Well, Michael Gove is being charged with actually looking at this. There are many challenges with it, and it's really important to look right across the spectrum, both the benefits it would bring, but also some of the challenges it would bring. Michael's going to be doing that, and we look forward to the results of what he finds.
A couple of last questions in your role as Secretary of State for Education. These are from listeners. Will teachers be forced to wear masks when schools reopen, when secondary schools reopen next month? Secretary of State.
So we're asking pupils and teachers to be wearing masks, but there are exemptions to that. Children who are deaf and have other special needs.
But in class as well, during lessons as well, Secretary of State.
during lessons, not during break times.
Okay. And a grandfather asks, and you'll be aware of the great army of grandparents who hopefully can be mobilised now to get our children back, that he has been collecting 2 different children from 2 different schools. Come March the 8th, he's had his vaccination. Come March the 8th, is he allowed to go to 2 separate schools to pick up 2 separate grandchildren?
Yes, he is.
He's allowed to do that. OK, lastly, the Prime Minister said yesterday that he decided he'd had enough reporting on matters. He wanted to get out and do it, and that's why he got into politics. You decided to make the leap from being an award-winning fireplace salesman into politics. What inspired you, Mr. Williamson?
You want to make a difference, Nick. You want to make a difference to the place that you live and the people that you know and love around you. And politics is just one of those amazing jobs where hopefully you can make a real difference and a real positive difference to so many people in their lives. And, that's what inspires me. And I think that's what inspires most people, whatever their...
And is it fulfilling?
Persuasion.
Is it what you thought it would be?
Fulfilling. It's tough sometimes, Nick. It has to be said. It's tough, but it's incredibly rewarding. And you do know, the thing I'm so looking forward to doing is seeing children going back on the 8th of March, seeing them going back into the classrooms. We're having to do so much work to make sure that happens, but it's so fulfilling when you see the work pay off.
Grateful for your time as ever. Gavin Williamson, thank you. Appearing here on LBC, 2 minutes after 8. News next, Thomas Watts.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 8 o'clock. Summer classes are to be offered to some secondary school pupils as part of a catch-up programme in England. The government has announced